morning, distinguished guests, speakers, and participants. It is my honor to welcome you to today's REAIM Symposium on Responsible AI in the Military Domain, REAIM. This symposium is focused on challenges and prospects as to REAIM. Please allow me briefly introduce myself. My name is Ho-Jin Jang, U.S. Attorney at Law, an AI policy researcher from the Seoul International Law Academy. This symposium is hosted by SILA and co-hosted by the Hague Center for Strategic Studies. As AI technologies advance rapidly, their integration into military systems presents significant opportunities and complex challenges. Today, the symposium is to address these critical issues, drawing on insights from the REAIM Summit 2024 and engaging with commissioners and experts from the Global Commission as well as local expertise. We will begin with the opening remarks by Byung-se Yoon, Chairman of SILA and Co-Chair of GC REAIM. Please welcome him with a big round of applause.
Good morning, everybody. For today, I'll speak in Korean, so please allow me to do that. 인류 역사는 새로운 기술이 개발될 때마다 새로운 시대를 열곤 했습니다. 근대에 들어서만 하더라도 증기기관, 프린팅, 전기, 인터넷, 스마트폰이 문명의 이기로 쓰이는 것은 잘 알려져 있습니다. 반면에 핵은 평화적으로도 이용되지만 대량 파괴 무기 수단으로도 사용되고 지구 종말 시계가 자정 90초 전에 이르게 한 주요 원인 중에 하나입니다. 이 중간에 이중 용도 기술이 있는데 AI는 이전의 어떤 기술보다도 이중성이 큰 전례 없는 기술로 부상하고 있습니다. 즉 양날의 칼이 될 수 있다는 것입니다. 특히 챗 GPT 시대가 열리고 생성형 AI에서 범용 AI로 나아가면서 군사적 분야 AI 이용은 우리가 생각하는 것 이상으로 더 빠르게 확산되고 있습니다. 혜택 및 기회 요인과 함께 위험과 도전 요인도 빠른 속도로 커지고 있음을 의미합니다. 바로 우리가 거의 매일 언론을 통해서 접하고 있는 우크라이나 러시아 전쟁과 가자 전쟁에서 사용되고 있는 AI 기반 무기 체계는 미래의 전쟁 양상이 어떻게 변화할지 보여주는 예고편입니다. 이제 AI는 무기 체계를 넘어서 정보 감시, 정찰, ISR뿐만 아니라 지휘 통제, 커맨드 컨트롤, 또 사이버와 정보전, 군수, 교육 훈련 등 전쟁과 관련된 거의 모든 분야에서 사용 중입니다. 작년에 타계한 키신저 전 국무장관이 마지막 4년을 AI에 전념하면서 강대국 간 AI 전쟁 가능성을 경고한 이유이기도 합니다. 또 최근에는 AI 아임즈 레이스 군비 경쟁, AI 주권, AI 소브린티라는 말까지도 나오고 있는 상황입니다. 이러한 현실에 대해서 최근 유엔 사무총장의 AI 자문기구는 글로벌 관리 체제의 적자 상태, 거버넌스 데피시트이라고 진단한 바가 있습니다. 이런 상황에 대한 문제의식을 갖고 작년 화랑과 한국이 주최한 REAIM 정상회의에서 REAIM 회의와는 별도로 민간 차원의 글로벌 위원회를 설치했고 이번 주 이례적으로 REAIM 2차 회의와 글로벌 위원회가 연이어 개최되었습니다. 오늘 라운드 테이블은 REAIM 글로벌 위원회와 위원회의 국제사무국인 헤이그 국제전략문제연구소와 한국 카운터파트인 서울국제법연구원이 공동 주최하는 글로벌 위원회의 특별 행사입니다. 오늘 심포지움 주제로 정한 인공지능의 책임 있는 군사적 이용, REAIM, 도전과 전망은 바로 이러한 시대적 고민에 대해서 내년 말까지 최종 보고서를 만드는 데 참여하고 계시는 글로벌 위원회 위원들 및 전문가들, 또 오랫동안 이러한 문제들을 유엔에서 실제 총괄했던 최고 전문가를 모시고 지혜를 나누기 위한 것입니다. 특히 오늘 이 자리에는 리에임 정상회의와 글로벌 위원회를 창설한 주역의 한 분인 박진 전 외교부 장관님, 또 국제규범 이행 문제를 10여 년간 헤이그 유가우천번 재판소에서 관장했던 권호건 재판관님, 또 김건 국민의 의원님들이 또 포함한 각계 많은 분들이 참석해 주셨고, 특히 나경원 의원님도 화상으로 참석하실 예정입니다. 2차 리에임 회의를 통해서 우리는 앞으로의 방향을 제시해주는 블루프린트 포 액션, 행동을 위한 청사진을 채택해서 한 바가 있습니다. 오늘 라운드 테이블을 통해서 인간 중심의 AI, 휴먼 센트릭 AI를 통해 인류 발전에도 기여하면서 또 국제 평화 안전에도 기여하는 그러한 통찰을 나누는 아주 중요한 계기가 되기를 바랍니다. 대단히 감사드립니다.
Next, I'd like to invite Michel Rademacher, the Deputy Director of HCSS, to give welcoming remarks. Please give him a big round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Jung, and thank you and welcome the members of the National Assembly, dear former Minister Park, and welcome Mr. Jung, the Director General for International Security of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor and a privilege to have you all here today. Let me first start thanking both Mr. Jung, the Chairman of SILA, and Professor Chung, President of SILA, for the support, the hospitality, and the generosity to co-organize the Global Commission activities at the REAIM conference and the REAIM Symposium today. It's most welcome because it's a big endeavor that we have to undertake, and we only have a small secretariat, so all the support given to us is much appreciated. Thank you so much. The contributions, I think, to the Global Commission to the REAIM conference in Seoul were a great success, and I foresee more to come. The members were in many panels, plenary sessions, and the ministerial luncheon. And I understood that the GC REAIM statement was well received. I look forward to fruitful discussions today, and I would now like to hand over to the members of the National Assembly, Mr. Na and Mr. Kim, please. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Rademacher. And we are also honored to have remarks from Her Excellency Kyungwon Na, member of the National Assembly. She has sent us a kind video clip with a message for us today.
Good afternoon. I'm Na Kyungwon, a fifth-term member of the National Assembly of Korea. Congratulations on the opening of this symposium. I extend my gratitude to Director Jung So-young and all participants for their contributions. AI represents a major turning point for humanity, and military AI shows particular promise. As South Korea develops its military AI, it is crucial to establish clear principles and foster international cooperation. I hope today's events encourages discussions on the effective use of AI while addressing ethical concerns. Once again, congratulations and thank you to the Seoul International Law Institute for hosting this important event. Thank you.
Thank you, Her Excellency Kyungwon Na. And now I'd like to invite His Excellency Gon Kim here with us to give and deliver his congratulatory remarks. Please give him a big applause.
Minister Byung Se-yoon, Chairman of SILA and Co-Chair of Global Commission REAIM, and Mr. Michel Redemacher, Deputy Director and co-founder of HCSS, and my former boss, Minister Park Jin, Your Excellencies, esteemed guests, distinguished colleagues, and dear friends. It is with great honor and profound humility that I stand before you today as the ranking member of the Foreign Affairs and Unification Committee of the National Assembly of the Republic of Korea. I would like to begin by extending my sincerest thanks to the organizers of the Global Commission REAIM Symposium and express my deep appreciation to all those who have gathered here to participate in this critical dialogue. Today's gathering is more than just a meeting of minds. It manifests our collective resolve to navigate the delicate intersection of advanced technology and human values. And I'd like to emphasize only one thing, because global norm making or global rules making is very, very critical and important. But when we look back, the non-proliferation regime, what made it possible is the efforts to building norms, but at the same time, maintaining supremacy of all the technologies of that field. So from the National Assembly point of view, we are supporting strongly the government effort to make international norms and rules in this area, but at the same time, we would like to maintain the supremacy of technology on the part of the like-minded countries. In closing, I wish to express my heartfelt gratitude again to all of you for your dedication to this important cause. I'm confident that the exchanges and collaborations from this symposium will lead to groundbreaking advancement and a deeper sense of collective responsibility. Thank you very much.
Thank you, His Excellency Kang Kim, for your remarks and your presence today. So now we are moving on. We will now take a brief moment for a group photo session to capture this important gathering. If I may, I would like to invite all speakers and panelists to come forward for the photograph, please. Following the group photo, we will proceed with the signing of the Memorandum of Understanding between Seoul International Law Academy, SILA, and the Hague Center for Strategic Studies, HCSS. This MOU marks the beginning of a broader and more intimate collaboration between our two institutions. It symbolizes our mutual commitment to work closely together, sharing expertise and resources to advance responsible AI practice in the military domain and beyond. If I may, please invite Seo Yong-chung, President of SILA, and Michel Redemacher, Deputy Director of HCSS. And please exchange the document and sign on it. Please, and we'll take another photo with the sign. So this partnership is not just about today, but about building a shared future of global impact. Please give them a big round of applause. Next, it is my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, Mr. Jong Kwon-yoon. Director General for International Security at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Mr. Yoon will share insights on the outcome of REAIM Summit 2024. Please welcome him with a big round of applause.
Good morning, distinguished guests. I want to start by extending my sincere gratitude to His Excellency Byung-se Yoon, Chairman of the Seoul International Law Academy and co-chair of GC REAIM, and Mr. Michel Radmacher, Deputy Director of the Hague Center for Strategic Studies, for inviting me to this symposium. I'd also like to express my appreciation to the Honorable Na Kyung-won and Honorable Kim Gun, members of the National Assembly, for their presence with us today, including virtual presence. And please excuse me for not being able to recognize all the dignitaries present here today, because this is simply, the list, guest list is simply too stellar. But I want to make a special recognize former Foreign Minister Park Chin, who was actually the first host of the first REAIM summit took place in The Hague, and who also made the decision for Korea to host the second REAIM in Seoul, and also my former boss. So without the decision, I think today's event symposium would not be taking place. So I just want to specially recognize that point. I'm also very privileged and honored to have an opportunity to brief on the result of the REAIM 2024, which was concluded 2 days ago. So without further ado, let me begin by playing the recap video for the REAIM 2024.
Let us embrace our responsibility to ensure a safer tomorrow. Thank you very much indeed.
국내외 AI 전문가 여러분들 진심으로 환영합니다. A partnership that will work towards international agreements on AI in the military domain.
I think the video really captured the spirit and also the mood of the scene, which in my relatively short diplomatic experience, I never was in an international event that the full crowd at the opening ceremony, pretty much all of them stayed until the closing ceremony. It was kind of remarkable. So let me now introduce the result of the REAIM Summit 2024. Next slide, please. One more. The second REAIM Summit was convened under the slogan, Responsible AI for Safer Tomorrow. We tried to show that our deliberations and actions today for the responsible application of AI in the military domain is crucial for the safer future for us and for the next generation. And the summit was co-organized by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Ministry of National Defense of the Republic of Korea. And they were co-hosts, the Korea, the Netherlands, Singapore, Kenya, and the United Kingdom. And delegations from 96 countries participate in the summit, from countries with both advanced AI technology as well as from Global South. And 38 ministers and vice ministers participate in the meeting. Page. Next, and the total participants number was about 2,000, and they were from governments, industry, academia, civil society, regional and international organizations, and youth, and also a pretty large group of youth. Next slide. There were about 3 objectives when we were organizing this summit. First, we aimed to enhance the international community's balanced understanding of the use of AI in the military domain in a realistic sense by carefully identifying the benefits and risks associated with military AI. And secondly, we explored the ground rules or principles for responsible use of AI in the military domain. We hope that this would pave the way for the international community to agree on norms for the responsible use of AI in the military domain. And thirdly, we aim that REAIM Summit promote active international cooperation among participants as we discuss the shape of future of AI governance. And in the run-up to the REAIM Summit, several consultation processes have been put in place to promote the international community's engagement for the REAIM process. And I think this process was very important and very successful. 5 regional events were held in cooperation with regional hosts, namely Singapore, Turkey, the Netherlands, Kenya, Chile, and Costa Rica. And these regional events were held in various formats, including workshops, virtual meetings, all tailored to serve the region's interest. And we invited experts and policymakers in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Ministry of Defense from capitals to exchange perspectives and ideas on the issue. And let me move on to the overview of the program. The summit convened with various sessions and events to promote in-depth deliberation and discussions on this crucial issue. There were events such as governmental roundtable, 1.5-track REAIM plenary, and side events such as AI exhibition and youth event. And during the ministerial roundtable, the discussion was focused on national approaches, challenges they face, and prospects for international cooperation on the responsible use of AI in the military domain. The REAIM plenary consisting of 3 keynote plenary sessions, 2 special sessions, and 47 breakout sessions were held throughout the 2 days. The 3 keynote plenary sessions each addressed 3 key agenda items. 1, understanding the implications of AI on international peace and security. 2, implementing the responsible applications of AI in the military domain. This means how to translate principles into actions. And 3rd, envisioning the future governance of AI in the military domain. And after each plenary session, corresponding breakout sessions tailored to each thematic focus were held. And in addition, REAIM talks, there were 2 of them, which are special sessions designed as a dialogue between policymakers and technology experts, took place over the 2 days. And during the summit, an AI exhibition and showcase by Korean defense companies were held. In addition, a youth side event was held consisting of policy proposals by Korean Youth Envoy for Disarmament and Non-Proliferation, RK UN Sci-Fi Futures Youth Challenge Award Ceremony, and Youth REAIM Tabletop Exercise. And while preparing for this REAIM summit, Korea had a couple of considerations in mind. First of all, the summit was our own follow-up action to the ROK's commitment to playing a pivotal role in the global AI discourse. And following the Seoul summit on civilian use of AI, which was held in May, the REAIM summit on military use of AI will solidify President Yoon Suk-yeol's vision to lead the global discussion on AI. This was an ROK vision reflected in its New York initiative announced in September 2022, Paris initiative in June 23, and his keynote speech at the 78th UN General Assembly in September 23. And second, the summit was our Korean contribution as a global pivotal state to build international norms for AI in the military domain. As an outcome of the REAIM summit, we endorsed a declaratory document called the Blueprint for Action, which lays out a roadmap for establishing norms of AI in the military domain, and 61 countries expressed their support for this document. And building on the Blueprint for Action, the ROK will also continue to lead discussions at the UN General Assembly in October this year. So far, 2 UNGA resolutions by the United States, and one by the United States and the other by China, but there is no such resolution addressing AI in the military domain. Therefore, the current efforts by the ROK and the Netherlands will be a meaningful contributions in international discussions on AI in the military domain. And the ROK believes that this is in line with our vision of GPS, global pivotal state. And finally, we believe that AI innovation in the military domain should be in pace with discussion of international norms. I'm proud to say that this summit provides AI and defense industry with an opportunity to raise awareness on the importance of responsive development, deployment, and use of AI in the military domain, which I think will ultimately help not hinder the development and innovation and the military on AI technology in general, including military AI. And our work has just begun, and there's just so many things to be done. But I would be most grateful that the Global Commission and all distinguished guests here could enlighten us so the REAIM process can truly reflect the voice of all constituencies around the world. And with that, I conclude my briefing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Yoon, for your comprehensive presentation and for underscoring the key outcomes of the REAIM Summit 2024. We are now moved to the core of today's event, the roundtable discussion on the challenges and future prospects of responsible AI in the military domain. I'd like to invite the moderator and the panelists. First, the moderator is Seong Chung, President of SILA and Professor of Korea University. The dear list panelists, Neha Butta, Professor of Edinburgh Law School, REAIM Commissioner, and Dennis Garcia, Professor of Northeastern University, REAIM Commissioner, and Won-Soo Kim, former Under-Secretary General of the United States and High Representative for Disarmament Affairs. And lastly, Moon-won Park, Director of Center for Defense Human Resource of Korea Institute for Defense Analysis, and at the same time, REAIM expert. Please give them a big round of applause.
Good morning. As introduced, my name is Seong Chung, the president of Seoul International Academy, one of the co-hosts of today's International Symposium. And then I'm going to moderate this session. Before I start to have discussions with the distinguished panelists, maybe let me just put some of the contexts that we can share so that we can have a better and deeper discussions on some of the targeted issues. DG Yoon just introduced what happened with the REAIM meeting. And then, as you understand, REAIM was initiated with the leadership of the Netherlands and the Republic of Korea. And then, especially former Foreign Minister Park Jin has been largely recognized for today. And then, this is a REAIM process, intergovernmental process, as you saw, right? This year, there were 96 countries gathered together, and then they agreed on the very important document, Blueprint for the Action. As I understand, Blueprint for the Action is not the final agreement on the issues of the REAIM, but it laid out a sort of the very important foundation where countries can move forward to discuss about the important issues that were listed in the Blueprint for Action. In the sense that I do like to recognize the very important leadership of the Republic of Korea to bring this important outcome in this meeting. And then, what is the GC REAIM? There might be a question that some of you may have today. GC REAIM is a global commission REAIM, which was also initiated by the government of the Netherlands when the REAIM process was first launched. And then it consists of the distinguished international experts and scholars, coming from the different world and different fields. So GC REAIM can be a brain to provide insights and guidance and then strategies on the REAIM process so that the REAIM process can not only about just a matter of the talk among the governments, but actually they can lead the discussions at the international level on how we can actually deal with issues of the REAIM. REAIM means the response of AI in the military domain. I recognize the important remarks made by the MP Kim that it's important for us to develop the global norms. We do understand. At the same time, that does not mean that we have to prevent technology development from being developed. So there should be a sort of the good balance between how we're gonna deal with the governance and the regulation matters, also how we can promote the more innovative developments of AI technologies. And here, from the point of the governance and the regulation, maybe military area would be the most likely area where countries can come up with a sort of the middle ground, how much and what kind of the regulations or building the governance would be necessary. I don't think that anybody in this room would want to see a situation where AI-driven the robot soldier would kill you by themselves, right? Then who's going to be responsible for this? And then how are we going to avoid this situation? If we go to industry, I do respect that industry people would say, don't worry, there will be no problem at all in that regard. So we will just develop our advanced technology so that it will bring the very good benefits to the people. We do understand, but at the same time, there should be some sort of the area where we need to have, if not the maximum, but at least the minimum level of the governance and regulation building. In that sense, REAIM process together with the GC REAIM is very, very unique and important, because it's not a universal track like a UN. It's more like a track among the like-minded countries. And then we have still different participants from all different world, right? And then having the different expertise so that REAIM can be a best process, not only at the governmental level, but also other levels, so that we can lead the discussions of the world, how we can achieve the development of AI technology peacefully. At the same time, what would be the necessary domain where we can actually need to have sort of kind of regulation and governance, right? So that's the how we understand the GC REAIM process together with role of the Global Commission on the REAIM. In that sense, I think I already raised some of the questions to the panelists. So I said that, okay, based on this, then there might be some the governance and the regulations are needed. And then if I would ask these questions in general, I think that all of you would say, yeah, sure, yes. And then if I ask you what are the details, I'm sure that everybody may have different answers. So we have distinguished panelists who have been working on this issue based on their expertise and then having their experiences and then having their own perspectives. So my first question is naturally, what would be the level of the governance and regulation? What is the role of the international law or other forms of the law which may need to have regulate actually issues on the responsible AI in the military domain. And then here, when I say law, it includes not only international law, but also all kinds of other legal instruments if we may want to discuss. So having said this, as introduced, we have 4 distinguished panelists. And then on my left, we invited 2 distinguished members of the GC REAIM. Seoul International Academy co-organized the GC REAIM meeting yesterday together with Netherlands Secretariat, the HCSS. And then we spent all day long to discuss about this issue yesterday. So we are still in the mode of engaging in heated discussions. So I think that you can start to talk about some of the related issues from your point of view. Then I will move to Korean experts who are also wonderful enough to add values on these topics. So let me start with Professor Bhuta from Edinburgh University. Floor is yours.
Thank you very much. So thank you very much to the Seoul International Law Academy for hosting us here for this wonderful event. And of course, particular thanks to our chairman, Mr. Yoon, and to the former foreign minister, Mr. Park Jin, who explained to me that he himself was a British academic many years ago. So it's wonderful to be among your company. So allow me first and foremost to say, I think here at an Academy of International Law, and as a professor of international law myself, I'm very pleased to speak in a personal capacity. I like to speak from the perspective of international law, but also to reflect on this from the perspective of my own thinking in international law, which is shaped by a reflection on the history and theory of international law. So our chair has rightly asked the question, and I think this is a critical question, what is the correct level of governance for this technology? This is a question that in some ways we can only answer in a historical perspective. The question of what would be the correct level of governance for any military technology 100 years ago, we would have answered very differently. I think we must start from this observation. Next week I return to Edinburgh and teach my master's seminar on fundamental issues in international law. And any consideration of the fundamental structure of the international legal order must begin with an understanding of its history. The short answer as to how to characterize the international legal order today is that the contemporary international legal order is no longer exclusively an order of states. It is certainly still, and this is very important to remember, it certainly still is an order of states, jus inter gentes, but it is also necessarily an order of peoples, and it is increasingly, and I think this is very important to appreciate, an order of laws and rules which is composed of increasingly specialized domains of knowledge and regulation. Somewhere here, no, I think he's left now, is a professor from Yonsei University, Professor Lee, who studied international law at Edinburgh some years ago in the area of law of the sea with my distinguished predecessor, unfortunately now the late Professor Boyle. And if you ask, what is the law of the sea today? Is it a regulatory regime which is only preoccupied with international law? The answer is no. There's a framework provided in international law. It is a constitutional structure from the Law of the Sea Treaty. But that structure itself is divided into areas of specialization. There's a seabed authority. There's a dispute resolution mechanism. There's a maritime boundary mechanism. And within that, we have a profound reliance on technical knowledge. The rules of general application, and this is I think my most important point. In the contemporary world, the rules of general application of international law are increasingly rules that attempt to articulate the relationship between legal norms and obligations and technical knowledge. This is a reflection of the nature of the world that we live in. It's a reflection that's not happening only at the level of international law. So again, wearing my academic hat, for the first time in 4 days, I can refer to my favorite sociologist of law, because surprisingly, always a surprise to me, state representatives not interested in the sociology of law, but I am. So here in an academic context, I will say, Max Weber. One of the fundamental theorems of Max Weber is not only that the modern state is fundamentally a state of administrative rationalization, which rests on expert knowledge in order to govern, but that each domain of social existence becomes increasingly internally differentiated through its own expertise. Now, this seems like a good thing. This is something that we would have understood 100 years ago as the progress of science. But the tragedy of the progress of science is that the domain of technical specialization and its knowledges within each realm starts to run itself according to its own parameters. And therein we have the great risk and reward of all technical systems. The parameters of the success of an AI system, the parameters of a technical domain, faster, cheaper, more efficient, more competitive, may or may not have anything to do with the domain of societal integration. And in fact, societal integration increasingly becomes a problem as a result. This is also true at the level of the international legal order. It's also true at the level of international law. Those of you, I'll make my second major academic observation. Those of you who have followed the study of international law over the last 30 years will understand that one of the most important, if not the principal theme, is the fragmentation of international law. And fragmentation is fundamentally an expression, as the International Law Commission pointed out 22 years ago, is fundamentally an expression of the specialization of knowledge in sub-regimes. It is a Weberian problem. So what does this say about the right level of governance? I think it says a lot. I think, first of all, it leads us to observe a critical observation that the conceptual and historical structure of the problem of the governance of AI is the conceptual and historical structure of modern law generally. To what extent is law to be merely resting upon the results of technical knowledge, and to what extent does it attempt to control the nature of technical knowledge? And it's not just its consequences, but also its purposes. Historically, we have said this is a question of sovereign decision. But we have also increasingly recognized that in the absence of forms of international regulation, we create massive externalities. The sovereign decision that is appropriate to the United States may or may not be the sovereign decision that is appropriate to Thailand, to Albania, to Italy. So I'll make two basic observations before I pass the floor further to my colleague Denise, who has wonderful and important things to say about contemporary international civil society, which I will not touch on. The first observation is, what is the right level of governance? Well, to the extent that we are talking about the concrete practices of governance that will have consequences in any military situation, we must be talking about the national level. Why? Has the international peace and security force envisaged by Article 43 of the United Nations Charter come into existence? Admittedly, it's only been 80 years, but it's not here yet. Right? The military domain is a domain of national bureaucracy. Fundamentally, militaries are not only national, but they are characterized by the style of bureaucratic governance that characterizes that society, with certain modular commonalities. Modern militaries have lots of things in common in the way that they organize themselves, but they must be, are, and will be fundamentally national in their governance. There's no way around that. But the question is, how do you get a fundamentally national domain of governance to regulate itself in a way that minimizes the risks of massive externalities? And the massive externality here, we've already had some sense of what those could be. Escalation, proliferation, extraordinary risks of disproportionate, potentially, force, and moral harms. Right? The moral harm at a level of human society that allows us to replace certain qualitative judgments about who is not a participant in hostilities with strictly quantitative proxies, which is what essentially we're talking about. These are the externalities we must regulate. The fundamental decisions will be made at the national level and implemented at the national level. And in order to be effective, they must be implemented at the national level. But how do we regulate them? This, I'd like to observe in the final instance, is simply another version of the governance problem that we confront today in many domains. It's not unique. It seems special to us. It has some special characteristics, but its basic conceptual historical structure is the same. And it's therefore really critical that we think about the modalities of governance that we have used in other domains, not in order to copy and paste them, but to think about the dynamics in which they have successfully stimulated convergence around models and processes that help to minimize externalities. And we have to be realistic. We will never eliminate externalities. For some states, it will be to their strategic advantage to maintain the possibility of such externalities. They want to keep them on the table. It's a threat. It's a shadow, because we are always bargaining in the shadow of some threat. But the critical point is, and I think to this extent the blueprint for REAIM is an excellent example of progress in this, is to narrow and narrow and narrow the ways in which certain kinds of risks of externalities become tolerable and acceptable in the international level. We have a very long way to go here, but I think if we think of it in terms of the structure of international governance, there are models that we can draw upon, but also, let's say, some faint hope. Right? I'd like to close with an observation that I read recently from somebody who was a very important influence on me, an old friend and a great maestro, as they say in Italian. One always has to have a maestro, Antonio Cassese. And Cassese said, or at least in one of his favorite writings by the Italian political theorist Norberto Bobbio, said, well, occasionally we find that a single grain of sand which has flown in from somewhere into the engine of a machine results in that machine comes to a stop. If there is even a chance that we could, in this way, defy our technological fate, we ought to aspire in some way to contribute to the movement of that grain of sand. And I think ultimately that has to be the horizon of action in the way that we think about governance.
Thank you. Personally, I published a article in Korean more than 10 years ago with the title of Global Governance and International Law. And I got a lot of questions from my colleagues in Korea. It's not about the law, but actually, as you rightly describe about, as technology develops, society changes, and therefore, functions and the characteristics of the law may need to change, because law is a kind of the social institutions. So if a society changes, law also can be changed. Of course, there could be some fundamental things that we can never forget, but there are other new things are emerging. In that sense, let me pose one interesting issue before I give my microphone to the second speaker. Think about this. 17th century, it's almost possible that the sovereign state can control movements of the human beings, others, crossing the border, right? It's a very, very possible. Now, AI technology doesn't know the existence of territory. So then there are issues that we have to handle based on the sort of the conventional and traditional framework, then how we can best develop the governance in the sense, right? Especially in the military domain. Military domain is the domain where sovereign states may have more room to control the border to some extent. So this raised a very interesting, not only academic, but also practical questions. Then I think that you can answer some of the aspects of this issue. So Dennis, floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Well, good morning, everybody. It's lovely to be here. Thank you for the gracious hosts for their hospitality. For the young students who are here studying international law, I salute you and I wish you the best for your very exciting trajectory. I have had a chance to talk to a few of you and knew about your subject matters. So I salute you and wish you the best. Indeed, I was inspired by Director General Yum's keynote speech about the evolution of norms, indeed very appropriate. To answer the question of the levels of governance, what I'm sensing is we're going to have a mix, right, of soft law, call for principles, collection of principles, and indeed that paves the way for eventually more binding instruments and legally binding commitments eventually. I don't anticipate for now one mega international treaty. I anticipate perhaps several in different areas of this large domain of the use of AI in the military. So we will not have a treaty that is, for example, let's take the Law of the Sea treaty, already mentioned by my dear friend, Professor Buta, which is one of my very favorite examples in international law. This is a 200-page long treaty that governs all aspects of the law, the life in the oceans. But I don't see this happening exactly in our area. It is important for us to perhaps see the evolution of international norms, as called by our keynote speaker, Director General Yoon, in the areas that are pertinent to our discussion. And we have here a very seasoned observer of that by my right side, someone I know for many, many years. I had a chance to interact back at the United Nations in New York. So indeed, a pleasure to see you again. Well, it always starts really with the first summit at the beautiful city of The Hague. The Hague is one of our very important host capitals here for this process. So 1898, one of the very first ideas of regulating weapons that caused harm, the ideas of superfluous injury and unnecessary suffering were not there yet. So there was no jargon and no nomenclature for what was happening, but yet the brave efforts of a few of the major powers back then. Well, fast forward to another diplomatic capital, Geneva, and I have some representatives here from Geneva. 1864, the creation of 1863, the first Geneva Convention, and then 1864, the creation of the International Committee of the Red Cross. So the first Geneva Convention, and then followed by the Guardian, the ICRC, which stands there still in the same building where it was created in Geneva, right across from the United Nations. So you see the evolution of the rules that protect civilians against harm very early on, right, 1864, 1863. And then, of course, the horrors of World War I have spurred another set of the formation of other international norms. You have in parallel a century-old formation of international norms process, which is the chemical weapons prohibition. So that starts evolving with World War I, and it comes to fruition after World War II in 1993 with a very impressive prohibition against chemical weapons. And one of our distinguished global commissioners present here, Jimena Viveros, has worked at the organization that monitors the Chemical Weapons Convention, again, in the big, important city, the beautiful city of The Hague. So you have the evolution of international humanitarian law, of course, the Chemical Weapons Convention being one of the very important center treaties for that body of law that becomes one of the most institutionalized of international law. You have then, well, World War II, other horrors, and another need, another diplomatic push for the advancement, further advancement of international humanitarian law. And you have the 1949 Geneva Conventions, the 4 conventions. And this becomes the very important framework. What is happening in parallel? And I ask the students here present of international law, there is another process of codification that is very vibrant, that will illuminate us, not only in understanding the formation of international norms on the protection of civilians and disarmament and arms control, but also in understanding the general evolution of international law. And that's human rights law. So human rights law, you see the first codification, of course, at the UN Charter. 1945, the UN Charter says, we the peoples, right, in respect of dignity and human dignity and in respect of human rights, right in the preface, right in the first paragraph of the preface, which is beautiful, we the peoples. Human rights law is mentioned 6 times at the UN Charter. So it is indeed an important process of codification that starts to occur very vibrantly because of the creation of the United Nations. You have, right after, you have the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, led by the brave efforts of Eleanor Roosevelt, right, who single-handedly led that impressive group of minds who worked with her closely through the years to form the 1948 a document ahead of its time. So we have to start thinking here, especially the students here of international law and the lifelong learners who are here too, how do these true processes, international humanitarian law and human rights law, the codification of which, how can they inspire us to create codification for the use of AI in the military? It's very important that we include these true bodies of law in any form of regulation for AI in the military. Then, of course, you have other processes that start occurring in 1980. You have the creation of the Convention on Certain Conventional Weapons, known as CCW, and it has several protocols. One of them is very inspiring. Is the protocol that prohibited blinding laser weapons. And that is a protocol that was created in anticipation of a problem, using the precautionary ideas in international law. Precautionary, if I extend, I could say the precautionary principle, but so it banned the use of this technology applied to weapons before they were fully implemented. So we have, at the same time, the other weapons that started to be regulated. You have landmines in 1987, cluster munitions in 1988. In these processes, the landmines, for instance, was so inspiring to humanity that the leaders were awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1997, Jody Williams, International Campaign to Ban Landmines, that inspired other processes. What are these other processes? Well, the Cluster Munition Convention and also the Nuclear Ban Treaty of 2017. So what is there for us in terms of the level of regulations that our very wise chair has invited us to think about? Well, this process, I would say, these more recent ones, the landmines, the cluster munitions, the Nuclear Ban Treaty, they infused the thinking with a lot of optimism and a high level of ambition and a human-centered approach that we also need in our case at hand here, the AI in the military. So the 2017 Nuclear Ban Treaty also led to another Nobel Peace Prize. And Beatrice Finn, the director of the campaign to abolish nuclear weapons, read the Nobel lecture at another important diplomatic capital for us, Oslo. So all these processes teach us that we need an attention to the human, the victim assistance clauses. All of this will have to be thought of at the levels of governance that we're going to need for the AI in the military. Well, what happens next? 2014, we have the start in Geneva. Actually, 2013, the Human Rights Council appoints Christoph Heinz, and preceding him was Philip Alston, who started to alert the world about the uses of more autonomy in warfare, eventually autonomous weapons. Christoph Heinz, a towering figure in South Africa, and I have here present one of his most brilliant mentees, Professor Thompson Shanjeta, who studied with him. His untimely death, Christopher Heinz's untimely death, has saddened us very much, the loss of a very towering figure. But his teachings back then are still the ones that are valuable for us today. As we think about AI in the military, he alerted us about a process of dehumanization of warfare, and alerted us that this would, the use of autonomous weapons would cause riskless wars and would bring more inequality in international relations, where the haves and the have-nots would the gap between them would grow deeper. So, well, I started observing these processes in Geneva in 2014 as part with Professor Shanjeta, who is here with us, from the International Committee of Robot Arms Control that we created back then with Professor Noel Sharkey and other scientists. And we started observing the negotiations in Geneva, the conversations in 2014. Professor Buta was there right in the beginning. He came up with the very first volume on all these matters and created a very important first collection of authors who thought about that. So, well, around 2017 in Geneva, the discussions turned somehow, and it started to be not only about more autonomy in weapon systems, but also about AI-assisted systems. And we were there trying to learn as fast as we could about computer science and all of it, technology of war and technology, and, right? And volumes such as Professor Buta's volume was very enlightening. I wrote one of the first articles in Foreign Affairs summoning the US for a ban on weapons, autonomous weapons. Now I know that a ban is not going to be feasible, but that's another question we can discuss. So, well, here we are. And there were a number of reasons why in 2017 that I can discuss later why that process became about AI systems. And here we are today. REAIM for me is the most exciting process because it is multi-stakeholder. Our hosts very, very wisely have invited many stakeholders, many segments, in the creation of the Global Commission with bright experts who are here present as well, and the Global Commissioners, a very diverse group of bright thinkers, is a very intuitive way to decide on those degrees of governance. And we are, I think, in very good hands after the Blueprint for Action as a stepping stone for much more concrete levels of governance. Thank you.
Thank you. So I put the two issues for the discussions today. One is governance itself. Second is a role of international law. So I think to distinguish global commissioners, especially in this broad context, focuses on the roles of international law, how it has been involved, what are the achievements that international law has been made, and then some others as well. And then, before I go to the other two distinguished panelists, then let me just raise the issue about the governance issues in general a bit more, so that I can promote more balanced discussions. There are different definitions on governance, but one of the definitions that I really like is governance means governing the society without the government. What it means, at the international level, we don't have a world government. So it's fragmented. And then two distinguished panelists emphasize the rising role of non-state actors. We initially started to have sovereign state-centric systems in the 17th century. Now we are moving toward having the more actors. So that's number one, how we deal with different issues like AI. So we also need to understand the exact characteristics of this issue domain. We are talking about AI in the especially military domain. So in the angle of the governance, there could be some other additional issues that we can engage in the discussions in addition to the very important issues of the role of the international law, also maybe something else. Okay, so in that sense, that I'd like to give my microphone to our next very distinguished panelist, His Excellency Won-Soo Kim. He was the Under-Secretary General of the United Nations and High Representative for the Disarmament Affairs. Personally, he was my senior in many areas. So, Ambassador Kim.
We just heard, I think, two inside views from the Commission. So I understand my job is to give some critical assessment of the Commission. But before doing that, I'd like to first extend my appreciation and congratulations to the work done by the five hosts, including Korea, and also REAIM Commission. Because, I mean, already two previous speakers gave overview of where we stand. And we all agree technology is here and technology will move at frog's pace. Governance stands here and it will move with snail's pace. So the gap is very likely to widen because on governance, it is, as moderator has just said, we are talking about the norms in the society of nations. So it is bound to be national governance. But national governance is fragmented because we have maybe 193 models of national governance. But I would say maybe three distinct national models led by US, market-oriented, self-regulation favored, and China, Russia, they want to regulate, putting national security front and center. And I think the EU is standing in the middle. EU wants to regulate with minimum guardrails. So already we have very distinct three national and EU maybe regional, international models. And we are divided. So how to press international governance based on these diverse national governance models to catch up with a very fast, much faster pace of technological development is, I think, a Herculean task. But for that, I'd like to congratulate the host because, as Dennis has said, has taken a very wise approach, smart approach, because we cannot move from here to there overnight. So we have to make progress step by step. And the logical step, first step, is to start from the sub-issue areas where we have least political differences and share common interests. And I think that regards, I think we agree on the need to prevent the worst case of AI misuse from happening, which regards proliferation of WMD and use of AI without human control in strategic warfare decision making. And I think blueprint for action, agree that REAIM has achieved that. So I must congratulate, as Dennis and Professor Butta said, from taking very important first step. But we have a long way to go. When we talk about international governance, it should include three core elements. First element is prevention. Prevention of the worst cases. But we have to also think about what if prevention fails? Prevention is likely to fail. Then second step we have to think about is to enhance preparedness. So that's why also 5 regional workshops, including training for third world countries, capacity building, confidence building, are also very wise step. And the third and last element, most difficult element, is how to respond. And here, we should have some capacity for rapid response. In case the worst case scenario, all of us want to prevent, takes place, then what to do about it? So, blueprint for action, I think achieved a lot for prevention. And I think also it is very wise step to build consensus among the like-minded countries, and then go to General Assembly with 193 countries. And there, I hope China will change its mind. Because China joined first REAIM document, but they stayed away from blueprint action this time, which really worries me. Why they cannot subscribe to the need to prevent the worst case scenario, including keeping human control in strategic warfare decision making. So I think that's the task which should be done before the General Assembly in October. But that will be only the beginning of the long process to go. So step by step, we have to expand the common ground, and I think we can use the confidence to be built, working on the issue areas of the common need and least political differences. Then we can use that confidence as working trust for the players to move to the next step, which will be more politically difficult. And there, I agree with Professor Butta and Dennis, by the way. Also very good to see you all, and also other friends in a global disarmament community, that we should not aim for one mega treaty. That will not happen. So we should start from sub-issue areas where we can build minimum coalition of the willing and able. Then we have to expand from one issue area to the next issue area and toward the, hopefully, something comprehensive which will deal with prevention, preparedness, and rapid response. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So I think one of the very good implications that Ambassador Kim raised is that don't be too ambitious from the beginning. I think we care about the effectiveness, effective solution. Otherwise, we don't have to work on this. So what is the effective way actually to lead to the final point that we want to build up? And I think he indicated there are actually not only single ways, there are different ways that we can consider, and we can consider different options, menus to deploy, and then there are different actors. So based on this, then I think the Global Commission has a lot of achievements already done, and I think their contributions will be continued. By the way, before I go to the last panel, let me just introduce to the general audience about the members of the Global Commission. With the leadership of the co-chair, former Minister of Foreign Affairs, Yoon Byung-se, who is also chairman of the SILA. We also have a new chair, former president of Estonia. And the Global Commission now has 4 work streams. So let me call all of them. So first work stream is called Technological Foundation, led by Professor Stuart Russell. He is here. President, raise your hand. Yeah. And then second work stream, governance and regulation, led by the Thompson Changata. I think I saw you. Right. He is back there. And then third work stream, decision making and responsibility, led by, Professor Russell is not here today. Jeroen van den Hoven is here. And then finally, implications for peace, security, and stability, led by Jimena Vivero, right? She is here. So 4 work streams are actually divided, different issues, and that tries to accommodate all these different issues into one, so that the GC REAIM can actually work together with the REAIM process. So that I have a very confidence by observing what the GC REAIM has done, it can be a central part of the making the new governance, also new rules, norms, and procedures relate to the AI issues in the military domain. So having said that, let me just go to the last speaker, Dr. Bang Moon-won. He is not only a Korean expert, also he participated in the GC REAIM as an expert. So Dr. Park, floor is yours.
Yes, I'm very happy to participate in this discussion, and I feel some nervous because I'm sharing my opinion with my many experts. Yeah. Anyway, I want to talk about more detailed issue. When we're talking about international law or governance, we must talking about military AI, how to use these days now. Maybe AI can use in the generative AI, depends ChatGPT sometimes. These days, including the human source management, logistic management, and maybe training or education, sometimes medical care. It is expanding the scope. The most problem thing is this AI used in the weapon system. As you know, many unmanned ground area or the water vehicles used these days. Many countries developed that. The problem is usually they operated by human control, but partially they can be used with autonomous function. For example, as you know, the Aegis, the warship, Aegis system, it can usually use the operated under human control, but special auto mode, maybe people choose the special auto mode, it can operate it without human intervention. The Aegis system selected the target and the engagement on his decision. These days, as you know, the Lavender, the Israel and the Hamas war, Lavenda there collected information, almost 2.3 million press stains, and it illustrates from range number 1 to the 100 for identify the fighter. Maybe they divided almost 37,000 Palestinians as fighter, but during the conflict, there are many civilian victims occur. It's very big problem. So when you talk about international law regarding the AI, there are many international law. As Professor Dennis Garcia, you're talking about the CCW and the laws, lateral autonomous weapon system, the history background, a very good explanation. Yeah. Usually, we can talk about UN chart or international humanitarian law, international human rights law, sometimes international criminal law. But the most important thing in the weapon system is CCW and the additional protocol 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe blind razor or another, the landmine or the war remnants. All things is we must talking about that. But the problem is many countries, they don't want to talking about the binding, legally binding document because they want to use the military AI in weapon system. But if there is some legally binding document, maybe their development while they're using military AI very, very limited. So they don't want that. Anyway, the CCW is a kind of the international government, and they presented their each country, but REAIM is not. We are participating all stakeholders, so we can talk about all things, including international law, international humanitarian law, or human rights law. So I want to talking about more detailed things. It cannot talking about other place, for example, CCW or other UN Assembly. Maybe these days the UN Assembly, they are interested in the loss issue, and we're talking, and they are participating in this meeting. Anyway, so I want to more detailed things. For example, every time we're talking about that human control and the responsible AI, it's a kind of a legal problem, but it's connected to the technical issue. If someone held responsible, it's the legal element is intent or negligence. Usually, we'll prove the negligence. Some people, he can predicted the unlawful result. But some people, the developer or use, they cannot predict the illegal result. Maybe there is no negligence. Then, how to is possible? Maybe for useful military AI, just I have two opinions. One is we can expand the concept of the intent or the other element of the responsibility. Another is we're more effort to explainable AI. It's connected to the technology. For example, if when some AI system, it can select or target enemy combatant. The enemy combatant, whether he wear the military uniform, or he had firearms, or he is now participating in hostility, there are many things to prove this problem. So we must succeed to this issue by the AI technology. So when we're talking about the international issue or governance, we're mostly talking about technology is together. So the lawyer, technician, and the operation expert meet together and talking about together. It's a way to we go. Yeah, that's right.
All right, thank you. My job also is to manage the time. We have 10 minutes left. So what I want to do, I want to take 1 or 2 questions, very brief questions from the floor. Then I will give the final round chance to speak and then answer to the question if that question would be designated to you. So raise your hands and identify yourself. Then there is 1, 2. Okay, all right. So microphone, please.
Thanks very much, and thank you for your very interesting and different perspectives. I'm Ryan Lever, I'm with the University of Queensland. Ambassador Kim already referred to the fact that China has not expressed support for the blueprint. China has also taken an ambivalent position to the regulation of autonomous weapon systems in another process. Russia has actively undermined for several years that other process. So in order for any new regulation to be effective, it needs to bring the states that are likely to develop military AI on board. So what would be your strategy for bringing China and Russia along on this journey? Thank you.
All right, Thompson and the back.
Good morning. Thank you very much to all the panelists. I do have just 2 questions. I could have more, but because you said we must be very brief. The first question regards questions of urgency in terms of coming up with a governance framework on AI in the military domain. Often we hear, every day actually, how there is overly how the speed at which AI in the military domain is being developed. Many colleagues or many stakeholders talking about the question of saying the train is or the bus has already left the station or the horses have already bolted. Yet when it comes to the question of discussing the agents of coming with a governance framework, particularly on certain AI in the military domain such as autonomous weapon systems, we hear the question of saying it takes time. It's a question of process. My question which I have on that is this a question genuinely about processes being long as far as governance is concerned, or is a pure issue of lack of political will, especially amongst those who are developing some of these technologies to actually come up with a governance framework? My second question regards generally the framing of our discussions in general, where often, especially the past 2 days, we've been talking about responsible use of AI in the military domain. My question there is to say, and I've been asking this question a lot, that is there an assumption of legality, especially from international law perspective, that all the AI in the military domain that we are talking about are actually legal weapons? We are actually trying to see how they can be responsibly used. From my perspective, which is just so that I contextualize that question, is that it's not only a question of use or responsible use, but governance in general, if you are looking at about it, there are certain perhaps AI weapons in the military domain that must not exist to begin with. So it seems, if I may say, we are more focused on the question of can they do it or how can they be responsibly used, instead of focusing on one of maybe far-reaching question which is more important. Should they do it or should they ever exist in the first place? And in this regard, I feel as if the first, this later question about should they do it or should we even be allowing certain AI military technologies to exist is being jumped because maybe they're vested interest in terms of what we should and we should not have. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So now I'd like to give a microphone to every speaker so that you can wrap up your final remarks, maybe for 1 or 2 minutes. And if you want to answer on one of the specific questions, you can do that. Starting with Professor.
Good. So I'd like to use my time to try to attempt to answer both questions. Again, really very much wearing my academic hat, right? To Ryan's question, so it's an interesting issue. I've participated in a Track 1.5 dialogue with Chinese military officials, and there'll be others that I'll participate in. And what strikes me in those dialogues is the concerns are the same. We are not far apart in terms of what we're worried about. So then the question has to be, if at the level of retired 4-star generals, people are articulating the same worries, what's stopping the political process? That's the question we have to ask. It's not that fundamentally the military position or the worries, the anxieties are different. And then we have to be realists. What's in part at stake in bridging this gap? We've got an environment of geopolitical competition where everybody's looking for their wedge, and everybody knows that being able to claim that one set of countries are those that align with global values in order to place other countries in a corner is a geopolitical wedge as much as it's a globally, legally significant thing. So we have to ask ourselves, in the current environment, maybe there's ways in which we should be de-escalating geopolitical tensions if we want people to agree on things, as opposed to potentially painting the picture in such a way that their absence of agreement is another chip in the geopolitical wedge. I think it's a question of where we are at the level of political leadership. And this is where, at some level, I think it's terribly important in the world of disarmament affairs, we emphasize the role of reasonable agreement, rationality, common interests, and be very careful about adopting any kind of moralizing stance about good actors and bad actors. I think that's unhelpful. Let me talk to Thompson's point. Thompson, the answer is in 1949 in the drafting of the Geneva Conventions. We like to look back on the Geneva Conventions as this wonderful moment of progress. We learned lessons from the past. We wanted to make sure they didn't happen in the future. That's not the history at all. Right? The best drafting history, the best historical account of the writing of the Geneva Conventions is by one of my former colleagues at the European University Institute, Boyd van Dijk. And he reaches a very important conclusion about the drafting history of the Geneva Conventions. What were the Western powers seeking to achieve? Was it never again? No. It was freedom to fight the next war. And that is the situation we are in. Every leading state in this domain is, on the one hand, pursuing an important geopolitical strategy about trying to ensure that they can claim the high ground, but they also want to maintain their freedom to fight the next war. And this is the reality we face, and it's something we have to grapple with. So this is another reason why I think we just have to be a little bit careful about deluding ourselves about the significance of moral judgments here. This is a strategic problem. Progress can be made, but we have to see the reality for what it is.
Thank you. Now, Dennis.
Well, we have to, addressing the two questions from the distinguished audience members. Indeed, for the first question, we indeed have to perhaps invite the countries that are reluctant to see that it's in their interest to be part of it. The interest can be a strategic one. You know, they want to be part of the rulemaking of something that is essentially important for them. That is, they see Russia, China, and others see this domain as amplifying, for instance, their nuclear capabilities. So it is in their interest in the sense that, well, it will help them be at the ruling table, setting the norms. They have vibrant industries developing these systems. So their industries need a signal that aligns with other industries around the world, because of the way the globalized world functions. And this, as Professor Stuart Russell said in his Human Compatible book, he says, many hands hold AI cards. So indeed, this is a set of technologies that is developed mostly in the private sector, but it's going to be used by many actors. And Russia, China, they have an interest to be sure that the actors they don't want is going to not use the technology, or you're going to use the way they want. And the only way they can assure that if they are in the rulemaking table. So the rulemaking table is about laying the common ground, common standards. These standards are about strategic issues. Indeed, yes, this is a strategic security, hard security question, but it's also about the prestige that comes, the moral high ground that comes when you embrace the norms, when you embrace the route that is on the right side of history. So it is about a choice of being on the high ground. So it's a constellation of factors, not only strategic interest, but it's also a question of the moral leadership that is also always distinguishes the countries throughout history. And I think for the question from Professor Shangeta, the second question is indeed the ICRC position is the starting point here, the 2022 position. Some weapon systems have to be regulated, some AI systems have to be regulated, and some have to be banned. So some system, the two categories, these are the red lines that the ICRC has pointed to, and it's the systems that learn as they operate, and the anti-personnel systems. So the ICRC is, I think, the starting ground for answering a very complex question. Both distinguished members of the audience put very, very exciting questions, the million-dollar questions. So technology has always had a profound impact in international law. It's a distinct force, and if we look at the examples of the past, they have spurred a lot of global cooperation. So let's remain on that route.
Thank you. Now, Ambassador Kim, including your answer to the question about China.
Yes, you put the question back to me. But of course, I mean, it is, I think, a billion-dollar question. But I think we have to recognize that this is not limited to AI misuse, but also to all disarmament areas, that China is the elephant in the room. And there, I very much agree, we should not moralize that debate or politicize that debate. Because we have to persuade China to look squarely to what should be done and what should not be done in all strategic and tactical military areas. Because what China will do will be closely watched by India, and India will follow, then Pakistan will follow. And we have to do something to stop that vicious cycle of bad actions. So now, on this important question, why China stayed away, then I think the organizers of REAIM has taken the right step. Rather than lowering our ambition level, taking into account Chinese concern, but still keeping that sort of minimum level of guardrails we have to put and confront China. But there again, we should not humiliate China publicly. So I very much prefer this format, 1.5 track dialogue with China, particularly by the US. And although it is unfortunate to witness that arms control dialogue between US and China, which started last year in San Francisco, now at standstill. So despite all these political uncertainties going around with the US presidential election, still I think US policymakers and experts should engage with China to persuade them or confront. I mean, why they cannot sign up to ensure human control in strategic warfare decision making. Totally against the common sense. And we should find what is the reason. But that requires very discreet but persistent dialogue using all channels, government and experts, or maybe together through 1.5. I have no magic solution. As to the second question, I also very much agree with Dennis and Professor Butta. International community must wake up. But history dialed back. The sad reality is international community wakes up only after international community sees the bad thing happens. So I hope bad thing is likely to happen, but not with devastating consequences. To wake up the international community. That happened with most of the treaties, 1949, but also CWC after Saddam Hussein's use of chemical weapons. Still, international community doesn't wake up to the dangers of biological attacks. So BWC doesn't have any teeth. So we have to prepare for that contingency and think ahead of that likelihood to happen. So as soon as that likelihood really takes place, then we have to present real blueprint for action. How to prevent, how to enhance preparedness, and how we do rapid response.
Thank you. Now, Dr. Park.
Yes, I just answered the second question, Dr. Thompson. Maybe, as you know, there are very hot discussion regarding the lateral autonomous weapon system. There is the two-tier approach. One is the fully autonomous weapon system must be banned. The other autonomous weapon system must be regulated. So 2 weeks ago, there was a second CCW this year meeting. There excluded some landmine or drone from the definition of the laws. But some countries opposed that because then a landmine or drone, other things all including the laws, was very difficult how to define the laws. Anyway, it is possible. What is the banned laws? Fully autonomous weapon system. It means fully autonomous weapon system is, after activated, maybe human cannot control the weapon system. It's very simple, but including the abstracted definition, what is human control? What is meaningful human control? So I just suggest more detail. It's not easy anyway. More detail illustrated as the landmine or the remnants of the war. It is a possible way, I think. So another things, we must think about the test and the evaluation and the verification and validation in the military acquisition process. Another is the Geneva Convention Additional Protocol 1, Article 36, legal review. It is a very useful way to prevent the fully autonomous weapon system. But it is kind of the legal norm, but it's connected to technical issue, as I mentioned before. So I think it is very important to establish the international standard. It's not binding, but it's just the best practice for other countries. It's my question.
All right, thank you. Even if I plan to have more discussions actually, but we already passed the scheduled time, so it's time for us to conclude this very important event. We focus on the issues regarding the governance and the role of international law, and then in the broader context of how REAIM and the GC REAIM process can contribute to deal with issues regarding the response of AI in the military domain. Of course, distinguished scholars have common views. At the same time, some differences as well. That is natural. And then I trust that this REAIM and the GC REAIM process thrive to actually lead all these discussions at the international level with the like-minded countries and then experts, so that we can contribute to international peace and stability in the end. So having said that, I would like to give my special thanks to the co-host of today's session, Hague Center for Strategic Studies, and my staffs from Seoul International Law Academy, also interns who came to prepare for this meeting from 7 a.m. today. So having said that, my last special thanks goes to our boss, Minister Yoon Byung-se. Without his leadership and support, this could not have happened. So having said that, thank you very much. Thank you.
To my dear list GC, REAIM commissioners and experts, for the benefit of time, please go upstairs right now, and your journey will depart in 5 minutes. And for those who are attending here who are using the interpreter, please don't forget to return your interpreter at the desk. I repeat, the next journey will start soon. Please go upstairs right away for global commissioners and the experts. Thank you.